My first TED Talk was on 11/11/11.
Ooh.
And I'll never forget one of the people who was giving, so a TED Talk is, it's 18 minutes and usually they're like, I don't know, between 5 and 12 people who are speaking the same day. So I was in the audience watching this individual, and we had done dress rehearsal. So I'd seen him in dress rehearsal. He was a little nervous, but on the day of, he completely froze. I mean, he froze. Then he started crying on stage. Like, it literally, anyone who's phobic of public speaking, everything that happened is exactly what people fear the most.
Worst nightmare.
But what was amazing to me, a couple things. One, being in the audience, I assure you, not once was I thinking in my head, what a loser. And I know everyone in the audience was not judging him, but their heart was like so full of love and compassion and just wanting him to do well. And when he composed himself, he pulled himself together and he gave the darn talk. I mean, literally a standing ovation. Not necessarily because the talk was so good, but because of what he did. It was just like a perfect example of how we think it could be the worst thing to happen. But that was probably one of the best things that could happen for him, because he realized he didn't die. He got a standing ovation, which I don't know. I don't know that anyone else got a standing ovation that day. And it was a really powerful experience. But we think people are going to judge us about that. Nobody there was judging. Nobody.
Yeah, I love that. And as a, both of us do quite a bit of speaking. That's one thing I learned too. Exactly that point of like, people don't want to see you fail up there. They're rooting for you. And a lot of times when you may feel like you messed up or you're doing something wrong, they have no idea because they don't know what the plan was originally. And the more you do it and the more you fail and get out of it and bounce back and learn certain different techniques and devices of how to make a joke out of it, or laugh at yourself, or ask someone if they got a good joke they can share. Or one of the ones that I saw someone do and then I started using all the time is, I'll get off on a tangent or something, and then I'll be like, what was I talking about? And then you ask them, and then they'll be like, oh, you were talking about, taking a boat to school in Alaska. And like, oh yeah, thanks. And then it's a much more real thing than going up there and just saying something that seems totally rehearsed and canned. So, man, I would have loved to, it would have been painful to see the guy crying, but to see him bounce back,
It was a hero's
and
journey in
everyone
like
just going
20
crazy.
minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
But I think, it's going back to the concept of social anxiety. A lot of times when people are feeling anxious in a social situation, they are judging everything that they're doing, which then puts them in the red zone. And then that makes it really hard to think about what questions to ask, what to have a conversation about. But the other thing is, if you take a step back and watch yourself, really kind of assess yourself when you're having a conversation with a good friend, with a family member with whom you feel very comfortable, conversations don't perfectly flow. You know what I mean? People mess up their words. They flub up a word. They can't remember this or that. Wait, what was I talking about? All of that is totally normal. It's just that when you're in a relationship where you feel comfortable, you're not overanalyzing that. So if you can realize, oh, I do that, in all situations, then when you're in a situation where you may feel a little more anxious, you can just remind yourself, this is normal. This is normal. And I witnessed it a lot when I started doing TV, because I would watch people like on the Today Show and Good Morning America. And I was like, oh my gosh, what if I forget what to say? But if you actually watch these people, sometimes they forget what they're saying, or they
What was the question?
Or whatever. Yeah. So if you just kind of go with that, it's easier.
The power of one's thoughts. And if he's looking at the speaker you're talking about, he's looking at like, hey, people are going to know, they're going to sniff me out that I'm a phony or a fraud, or I'm not going to do this perfectly. But if you change the framing, and nothing's changed in the audience, but if you change the framing of like, instead of them here to judge me, they're rooting for me. And what a different way he probably would have showed up and presented if he knew like, hey, everyone here is excited about what I have to say, to learn something new and to take it from there.